Welcome, everyone. Welcome to MSP Unplugged, episode 24, Breach Prevention. And it's a special episode indeed, as we are outside of our normal scheduled time, but for good reason, because we have a great guest today. I am your host, Paco Lebron. This is our live show where we discuss different ways to run your IT business, whether it's managed services, consulting, break fix, and anything in between. I'd like to go ahead and introduce our guest and co-host for today, as Jeff will be out, is Alper from CyberGuard 360. Al, how are you doing today?
I'm great.
Perfect. And did I get your last name right?
Me, by the way.
No problem. I appreciate you working with us here. I know we originally had it scheduled for last Sunday. It was Father's Day. We made that mistake with our calendar being so good with scheduling for the future. And as of right now, we're still kind of booked out until I think almost September now. So it's been working a little too good for us, and we kind of forget those holidays in between. So I appreciate you being flexible with us and coming on today. We're also trying out this time as well to see if those that are going to be watching and listening would like to see something on Friday versus Sunday evening. So let us know what you guys think. Feel free to message us and email us over at Jeff's email, which we'll go into the details from there. But as we normally do with every show, we usually start off with a tip or a story. I'll kick it over to you, Al, see if there's anything you'd like to share as far as a tip or a story for the audience today.
So since we're talking about how to run your IT business, learn how to run your IT business, I see it right at the bottom of my screen. Probably the biggest thing I can say to I'll do a little story. How's that? So we actually recently acquired a partner. We call them partners. So anybody who comes to us and subscribes to one of our platforms are one of our partners. We do it because we believe in partnering the success of their business. And one came to us by way of our we have something called a SAFE certification program, SAFE, for secured, assured, fortified, and educated. And it's a certification program to ensure that your MSP is certified safe. And so you contract with an outside assessor, and they run all the tests on your organization, et cetera, et cetera. So they came to us to get certified, and we thought they were just going to go through the normal process. And it turns out that they actually had been hacked. And I'm sure that every MSP has read on this, that's listening now, that will listen down the road on the YouTube channel, has seen the headlines, some of the bigger ones that have been hacked. There was one, I think recently, as a week or so ago, if I'm not mistaken, that was in the headlines. And as you know, MSPs are a prime target because we are an aggregator. Right? If you consider that on average, the average MSP has about 30 clients, give or take an ish. Some of the more successful ones have more, and some of the guys that are just starting or that are sort of winding down have less. But in general, the average MSP has about 30 clients. And so if you think on average 30 clients, excuse me, if you hack an MSP, think of the thousands of endpoints that are out there, right? Or at least several hundred, if not thousands. But
Right.
At least 1,000, give or take an ish. So if you hack an MSP, you get access to those thousands of endpoints. More importantly, one ransomware attack against an MSP through the MSP to their clients, and you effectively have 30 ransomware attacks that have happened, and you get paid 30x. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's a gold mine for hackers, which is why we're under attack. As a matter of fact, for those of you that use ConnectWise Automate was recently hacked. A vulnerability was found in it, and someone was hacked through ConnectWise Automate. So our vendors, and we're a vendor for some MSPs. Luckily, we don't connect to their systems. Oh, that's not true on the CyberGuard side. I guess we do. But to the extent that we connect to the systems that they manage, we are your biggest vulnerability. Not we as in CyberGuard, but we as vendors.
Right.
Third-party hacks, because to your clients as an MSP, you're a third party.
Right.
Right? You're a first party to them, but you're a third party to the data. And so ultimately, if you get hacked as a third party, you're their biggest risk. Your vendors are your biggest risk because your vendors are connecting into your data. Anyway, I'm going far afield of the story, aren't I?
No, you're good to go. You're good to go.
And so they got hacked through one of their vendor platforms that they used, and we didn't know that. They came in to get certified. What they were really looking for was to be tested and to see where the hell they went wrong. Well, as it turned out, and we've gone through this process with more MSPs than I can tell you, that they preach, but they don't practice what they preach. And so they preach safety, they preach security, but several of their engineers, without the CEO knowing it, had turned off 2FA, are reusing passwords, have opened RDP ports to a lot of the servers where they had ongoing issues and for ease of access. And so they were wildly exploited. Because they were wildly insecure, and because the CEO didn't know about it, or their VP of Ops didn't know about it, their engineers were running free, not because they were intentionally trying to expose the MSP, but because they wanted to make their job easier so they can do more. I mean, they were trying to be more efficient, basically.
Right.
So in their zeal to be efficient, they exposed this MSP to a hack. They got breached. Their clients got hit with ransomware, and they themselves ended up paying the ransom because ultimately it was they that were responsible for it. So we helped them button it down. We helped them close it up. But if there's one lesson to be learned for all you MSPs out there, make sure that you are practicing what you preach, monitoring your team. Again, they're not looking to expose you and put you at risk. They're looking to do their job. Help them do their job securely, though. And so we strongly encourage that.
You know, and you make a great point on that, because, you know, really the biggest piece on that is a lot of us, one, don't eat our own dog food, and we don't really try and do like exactly what we preach. We preach. But specifically, the biggest thing is that a lot of us tend to hear of these stories that a lot of the IT business owners and MSPs are breached, but in reality, it's really the vulnerability of, and not even that. Let me shift it up a little bit. Sometimes we blame a vendor for a precision, or there's an issue with their product, but in reality, it was a setting done by the user. And now in the headline, that vendor got so much, you know, slack, or didn't get enough slack, or got bashed, right, and got hammered so bad. And in reality, it was due to a user not doing their due diligence, and now the vendor had to suffer. So exactly as you mentioned, you know, looking at a vendor and really like, and I follow the same preach, is like, you know, vendors, you shouldn't look at a vendor as a vendor. You should look at a vendor as a partner. Help make both of the sides' job easier, right, because in the long run, that's really what you need to do to be secure, and also, you know, make sure you do your own due diligence on your own side as well.
So I'll give a lot of credit to those vendors that enforce things like 2FA, right? So if you think, let's look at the Webroot breach, right? So the Webroot breach is a perfect example of what you just said, right? That the MSP didn't set the setting to enable 2FA. Now, I will simultaneously say, with all due respect to Webroot, a second password is not 2FA, right? So a second password is exactly that, a second password, and a second password can be hacked. 2FA is something that's, you know, holding my phone up over here, is something that's connected to you, tethered to you, biometric if possible, that a hacker couldn't hack into. Now, that's not to say you can't intercept text messages. You can. SMS can be hacked. Unfortunately, I've seen that as well. But the likelihood of that is remote. Where brute force attack on passwords is really a bot. There's nothing to it. Right? So Webroot's idea of 2FA, I don't consider 2FA. But leaving that aside for a moment, if that had been on, certainly the likelihood of having been breached would have gone down.
Correct.
Right? So that's an example where the MSP fell down and they really should have done the job. Now, you could argue, and I do argue to a large degree, that the vendor themselves should say, listen, we're turning it on by default.
Right.
If you don't want it, you have to go in there and purposely turn it off. And again, it's not to be a PIA. It's to demonstrate that we take security seriously. And you need to either do it or not. And if you're not, then you have to be proactive in being insecure.
Right. Exactly. So, yeah. And I think because of some of those bigger breaches with vendors and MSPs, I think a lot of partners and vendors are really taking the really the first step and driving that exactly like you mentioned. I think my PSA and RMM made that a change several months ago where, hey, look, we're turning on 2FA by default. You have to physically disable it, but we're turning it on for everything. Hey, we're changing the way our portal works, and now it's got to be an eligible email listed in the contact. There's no more creating random usernames, etc. So a lot of vendors are starting to, exactly like you said, it's starting to make that approach because specifically, you know, you have to go out of your own way to do that. And it's that constant conversation of convenience versus security, kind of going back to the story that you mentioned earlier. Everyone loves convenience, but unfortunately there's a price to that. And yeah, it's a PIA to do the security and the 2FA and et cetera. But, you know, in the long run, with a lot of the products, including the one we're going to talk about today, you know, it has really caused us to look at tools to put in our arsenal to help prevent, but also at the same time, we've kind of opened our eyes and understood it's not really like how it used to be. And now more than ever, we really have to be on our toes to get everything done and protect our clients like we're saying that we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so no, but I think
we always, just to sort of interject there for a moment, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, no.
You know, one of the things that we, and we have this in PII Guard or PI Guard. PI Guard's easier to say, so I always say PII because it's personally identifiable information. But but to be fair, it's PI Guard. So we have a denial of service letter that we include in there as a template for our partners, and we always tell our MSPs, listen, you should be going to your clients and saying, when we onboard you or we're bringing on this new service, we're turning on security. If you don't want it because it's a PIA to you, you've got to sign this denial of service. Because so if you look at your, like you said, your RMM, your PSA, they're all now requiring 2FA. Mm-hmm. And you have to literally go in and whitelist yourself from their auth anvil or their duo or whatever it is before you can get past not using the 2FA, right? So you have to be proactive in disabling it. A denial of service letter is that proactivity of your client saying, I don't want you to protect me. Yep. And that's what MSPs need to be doing. They need to be in their face with their clients, say, listen, we're dead serious about security because your problem becomes my emergency. And I don't want you to have a problem because I don't want an emergency. Right? Because then you're out of business or whatever the case may be. And so you need to be like your vendors are to you. You need to be to your clients. Here's your denial of service if you don't want me to protect you.
Right. And I think you hit on a good point on liability. I mean, I think we all at one point early in our journey as we're walking through this and being MSPs, managed service providers, managed service and security providers, IT business owners, even computer repair shops that are offering backup. If they're doing some type of hybrid solution. I think the biggest piece where, you know, we used to think, okay, well, they elected not to do it. No, my Google Home is going off. But basically,
let me start by telling you how insecure Google Home is. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, it's funny because I actually have the Wi-Fi off in the office here because I had to do some things around, so that's why it's not even connected. But anyway, but going back to the liability piece, I think really, and I was on this train of what I was going to say. Oh, so basically when we were first starting off is that we all believed at one point that if they didn't elect it, that was good enough. But when a problem came up, what's the first thing that our clients say? Hey, why didn't you protect me? Why didn't you take care of me? And without having that specific letter, just as a liability concern, just to say, have something that says, hey, I asked you, you elected not to do this, and here's the proof. Whether, you know, it is that sheet or an email or something in writing that you want to have, even within your contracts as you're onboarding, as you mentioned as well, if that's even built into there, having that ability or something in writing that says, we suggested this, we strongly recommend this, we will move forward because, again, we are not responsible for your compliance, but we are here to help you with your compliance. And that biggest piece is, here's the documentation. If you choose not to, we're informing you this is something that's going against what we should be doing. but okay. And then that way, and a liability concern covers us as much as possible, because obviously you can be sued for anything in this day and age. So,
well, and the key to that as well is that if we all carry E&O, we carry P&C, we carry liability insurance, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at it's the deck page or the declarations page, right? So in insurance vernacular, it's the deck page, and the deck page, excuse me, lists all of the exclusions. Go ahead and read your deck page. Mm-hmm. I've seen them, so I know, right? So there's a specific thing that says if you haven't taken certain precautions, you're liable for that bill, and the insurance isn't going to backstop you. Mm. So your insurance isn't going to cover you when your client comes and sues you because you didn't tell them. And there's two very subjective standards when it comes to liability, and this is true for compliance and everything else. It's called best effort, reasonable care, right? Mm-hmm. Best effort and reasonable care. So, and your insurance policy says things similarly. If you haven't made best effort or taken reasonable care, they're not going to backstop you. Mm-hmm. And so, sort of segueing into our platform for a minute, I don't want to go off on a tangent on that. One of the reasons why we give away training as part of the subscription is because security training is a basic, reasonable care, best effort standard. It wasn't an accident that we gave it away. Sure. We gave it away because it is quite literally a minimum standard of entry to say, hey, we made the best effort of making sure our team was trained. Or we're making the best effort to make sure you, Mr. Client, and your team is trained so that if something happens to them, their insurance company covers them. So I'm using that as an example because those standards are real, and your insurance company isn't going to cover any loss, right? If you haven't made taken best efforts made best efforts or taken reasonable care. Exactly. So that's why things like denial of service letters are so important, because you're making a best effort and they're saying, no, I don't want your best effort. Otherwise, it's a he said, she said.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, that was a great tip story. I know we took quite a bit on that piece, and that's a lot of great conversation. I really appreciate that. I guess, I'll throw my tip out really quick and we'll just jump right in. My specific tip really is more of a tech tip. Just had a really bad, stubborn software that I just could not uninstall for the life of me, no matter what script I can apply to it, no matter what bad script that I reached out to the vendor to try and grab. And it was something that it was available in the ad remove programs. I just have so many endpoints, I don't want to manually have to do that. So what I ended up finding was Nearsoft's uninstall view, which was a simple enough tool that I've used plenty of their tools in the past. Literally scripted one time and it just took everything out for me. So it was a tool that I had completely forgot about before. But uninstall view, Nearsoft, we'll have the link in the show notes, but definitely pretty great for us.
Awesome. Yeah, Nearsoft makes some really cool tools. I mean, that's not their only cool tool, by the way.
Right. They got so many
really cool tools. I've got to say that.
I agree. And I just happened to just Google because I just was so frustrated and couldn't figure out, all right, how am I going to automate this? Because there's no way to be able to do it from the cloud, and it's long story even short. So I just said, you know what, I got to figure out a way to do this after so long, spending about almost 2 weeks, and simple enough, that scripting that with the name of the actual software, and it took care of it for me with no problem. Awesome. But moving forward, let's go ahead and go into the main topic. We're going to be talking about CyberGuard 360, basically a cybersecurity intelligence ecosystem. And then Al, we'll go ahead and just kind of start with kind of your origin story, how you got into the industry, and how'd you get into where you're at now today.
Awesome. So I appreciate that. It started at a 5,000 watt radio station. Come on, that's a joke now. Where's that from? I'm old enough to know that. So that's from Mary Tyler Moore. I'm sorry, guys. That was Ted Baxter at his radio days. Anyway, so those of you that know me know I also own an MSP, Absolute Logic. Absolute Logic has been around since 91, in and out of that business a couple of times, bought and sold a few companies, came back to Absolute Logic in the early part of the 2010s and converted it to a full-on MSP. And then somewhere around 2014, 15, we launched a security practice in the MSP. We were reasonably successful MSP, probably a little bit larger than your average MSP at the time. And we launched a security practice. And one of the things that we did when we launched the security practice, and one of the things I do part and parcel of when I do anything that's going to be new, is I invest an incredible amount of time. And if there's any lesson to be learned from this for everybody out there, if you're going to launch another line of business, if you're going to launch a new service offering in your MSP, there's nothing as important as investing time up front in carefully curating what it's going to look like, what it's going to include, what's going to be in the stack, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason I say that is really based on my story. So when we decided to launch a security practice, we had a lot of clients in a number of somewhat compliance obligated verticals. When I say somewhat, because not all of them were necessarily obligated by compliance. It wasn't a regulator, but perhaps their industry set standards that they wanted them to live by. So for instance, accountants, as an example, okay? Well, you have a governing body that is your own industry. Lawyers are just like that as well. There's no law that says lawyers have to do the right thing. There's a governing body that is their peers, right? So I guess that's somewhat incestuous, and I'll leave that out of the, because everybody knows how I feel about lawyers, and my best friend's a lawyer, by the way. So we invested an enormous amount of time, about a year. It took us a year to launch our cyber solution. We put a ton of time into, okay, what is it we want? What problem did the industry have? What did we want to solve for? Did we want to solve the whole problem, some of that problem, a lot of that problem? And then once we decided what we wanted to solve for, then we looked at, okay, what vendors do I need to help me assemble this, right? There's some that we can do ourselves, and then there's some that we need vendors to help us with. And every MSP knows what I'm talking about, right? We've got a lot of great talent in the company. Most of it sits in the CEO seat. And then we hire people to fill out the rest of the organization, and hopefully we're able to delegate all of that out. But anyway, then we need our vendors to complete the solution and then bring that to market. We did that. We spent about a year doing that. And the reason why I said early on was that you want to invest the time up front, because in 6 months, we were the #1 solution in the Northeast. And by the end of the year, we are currently the single largest provider of cybersecurity solutions to the New York State Department of Financial Services regulation, and now to New York Shield. We are the second largest provider for the California Consumer Privacy Act, because of all the effort that went into that. We on average, when we brought that solution to market, we were closing 2 deals a week, first phone call over the phone. Okay, that's how we were wildly successful. And so we had a great solution, right? A couple of my colleague MSPs owning their own MSPs, like, how the hell are you doing this? And I said, well, we did this, and this. And they said, all right, can we do that too? You don't have to hit me with a bat for a light bulb to go off. I said, well, crap, if I figured out a way to package this as a channel solution, I can bring on MSPs and help them do it. To be fair, I did have an advantage because I also own a development company. And so one of the pieces of the puzzle that was missing became PyGuard 360. Okay, we had to build that ourselves to fill out the solution that we were bringing to market. So we built that to fill out that solution. So it was an easier transition for me to go to the channel, because I had my own platform to go to the channel with, if you would. And so we basically said, okay, if we spin this off and turn it into a channel company, we can basically create this platform for people like Absolute Logic, my MSP, to do. So we did. We spun off CyberGuard. we took this platform that was built just for my MSP, and we turned it into a completely white labeled. It's an independent company. I'm the only person that steps over the wall. So we've got a little shy of 60 people in CyberGuard, and we've got shy of 15 people in my MSP. Nobody in my MSP works in our channel company, and nobody in CyberGuard works in my MSP, except me. I step over both walls, necessarily so, right? And we do that for a lot of reasons. We are a channel-only company. We don't, in fact, we get, and this happens a lot because we also do a lot of SEO. We'll have larger companies that will reach out to us for the training and the dark web and the policy module. Say, well, are you an MSP? No, we're not. Okay, this is based on where you are. We have an MSP in your area, so I'll make an introduction, because we are dead serious about being a channel-only company. And so we spun that all, and since we've launched, we've been very, knock wood again. We did it the same way. We spent a little less than a year turning it into a white label platform. We then started putting content into resource section. We want to make sure that our partners had some marketing collateral that can go with that. We launched the middle part of last year without dark web, and then we brought dark web on the beginning of this year, somewhere around the end of February-ish. We brought dark web into the platform, and then it's been a terrific success. We're actually releasing version 2 next week with a brand new user interface. So I'll give you a quick story about that, as long as I'm in the storytelling mode.
Yeah.
So as we were starting to wireframe out, one of the things that, and anybody who watches my webinars know, like I'm big on wireframes, right? I put everything into a wireframe or flow chart, depending on who you are, because I want to map out exactly what something's going to look like and what the workflow is going to be and all of that. And as Stephen, who leads the development, he leads both my dev company as well as the dev side of the business. As he's starting to map out the wireframes for version 2.0, one of our developers said, I'd love to get rid of some of these extra clicks. Mm-hmm. And so Steve's like, well, show me where you think it's a PIA. And so anyway, long story short was many conversations with many of our partner MSPs, and we hired an industrial designer. We redesigned the entire user interface, top to bottom. And along with all the new features that we're releasing next week is a brand new UI. So, which is we're really excited about, because I tell you what, all of our beta partners who have been playing with it, every single one of them, this is it's awesome. It's awesome. And they told us how easy it was to use to begin with, much less the new. So I'm really excited about the new UI.
So for disclaimer purposes, I actually am one of those partners. I use PyGuard 360 myself. And I'm trying to remember, how did I find PyGuard 360 in the first place? It must have been through one of the Facebook groups where your solution was mentioned. I went in there. So basically what was happening at the time when I enrolled, and I think it was probably around March, I think or April was the time frame that I found PyGuard 360, was I was looking for a dark web monitoring solution. And at the time I was with another company that, although great, I just felt that it did not provide me specifically the amount of searches, the amount of prospecting that I needed specifically for dark web monitoring / prospecting as well. Because that's really what I wanted dark web to begin with, was more as a prospecting tool. And then monitor kind of moving forward. So there are a lot of great solutions out there, a lot of well-known solutions out there for it. Either it was I just couldn't find myself with that budget and resources spending for it, or the ones that I was currently with was an okay solution. It offered a lot of great benefit with other features that it had, but it wasn't the feature I personally wanted. Which is why I spoke with you, we got onboarded. I mean, and exactly how you mentioned, I'm kind of excited to see what the new platform is going to look like, because the platform now is very simple. I mean, you can get to where you need to do. If you want to do a dark web search, it's right there. I mean, you can get to your policies, you can get to your training. I mean, it's very easy to get through where you need to go through. Now, I will admit the only portion that I had really concentrated on was the dark web monitoring. And maybe we can kind of go into that a little bit more, and then we can dive into the other pieces of the training along with the policy module as well, because there's a lot of great features that you have, specifically even some templates that appeal to some of the standards that we probably want to kind of model some of that cybersecurity or just a framework in general. So
one of the benefits that our partners, like, I wasn't going to mention you were a partner, I left that out. I
no, it's
do that if you wanted to.
No, I really appreciate it.
So one of the benefits that our partners enjoy about this having come from an MSP is I think like an MSP. And so when we built the platform, I built it through the eyes of my MSP. And one of the things that always annoyed me about vendors, and still does, by the way, so in the MSP side of my life, it annoys the crap out of me, right, is I don't want to be locked into a multi-year contract. I am not a fan of that. Now, I understand why it's done, and we thought long and hard about it. In fact, early on, we had it against my better judgment, but I was outvoted by my team. But I think if you may remember a few months back, I said that we're done. I'm not doing this contract crap anymore. So we are only month to month. And you want to quit? Have a nice day. You know that you in the month you're in, you can. That's fine. I truly believe that a vendor has to earn your business every day. And if I'm not doing the job, I shouldn't be holding you hostage in a contract. I just
believe the same thing.
I just don't feel that way. I mean, I'm my MSP just won't. I can't. I hate it. Right. So that was one. And the other big thing is I'm not a fan. As you know, I'm not a fan of bundles. You don't tell me I need to. You have to buy a pack of 10 if you want to use me. I only want to. If I want to have a little sip of that bourbon, I don't want to buy a 3-liter bottle. Right.
Right.
Well, maybe I do on bourbon, but that's a different discussion. It is bourbon after all. But I don't feel I should be obligated to buy everything you have simply because you decide I have to, right? Which is why you want one domain, monitor one domain. You want 1 million domains, monitor 1 million. I don't make you buy a bundle of domains. So, and that was my other thing. So those are my two pet peeves are exactly the way we deliver our platform, right? I just don't believe that an MSP should be suffering for a vendor's demand. No. And anyway, I won't go down in the weeds, but you get my general gist, right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100% because we get criticized too, where we don't have contracts with our own clients, and they're like, "What? How can you do that?" And I was like, "Well, I'm confident in my ability to do what I need to do. I have had clients since 2013. If for some reason someone comes along and undercuts me, and the client believes, hey, that's the better price, then you know what? They weren't my client to begin with. I did something." That didn't help me get in there. And there had to have been plenty of conversations for me to be aware, like, yeah, that was expected, or yeah, I know what's going on. And I get in fights with my team as well about it, and the quote unquote uncertainty. But as long as we just do what we need to do, I truly believe, and Jeff also believes this too. If you're doing the work, everything's gonna follow, and that's kind of just how it goes.
That's it. Again, like I said before, you gotta earn the business every day by doing the right thing. That's one of the reasons why, I know that some of our competitors haven't changed their user interface in years. Mm-hmm. In fact, some of the partners who come over say that sometimes they feel like the interface was built in the basement by the kid with their Crayola crayon box. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it's point is like we went through that. I can't tell you. I mean, you know how much an industrial designer costs? So,
I can't even imagine.
But it's about, would we want that? No, we wouldn't want that. And so let's rip it and replace it with something that's, you're gonna love it, by the way.
Okay.
You're gonna love
I'm gonna hold you down to it. You hear it here first. If I hate it, I'm sending him a message and letting him know that it is that. But kind of going into I think some of the modules in PyGuard, specifically PyGuard 360. I know you have a prospecting section that allows you to do kind of like a cyber assessment tool and a dark web search. Can you expand a little bit more of kind of how you've seen some of your partners using that, or really just in general? And I assume everyone from all the episodes we've had before know what dark web monitoring is. Obviously, you're monitoring credentials for your clients that may have been involved in some type of breach, or their credentials are online being sold or just exposed online in some way, shape, or form. And this is a way to alert you as kind of the key holder and understanding what your client needs for a security factor, but also being able to do your due diligence to kind of make sure that that's all been set as far as for passwords and credentials on systems.
Right. So dark web is very important. We have a couple of different prospecting tools. Like you said, we have CAT and we have dark web. We're going to be adding some simulated phishing components to that. And realistically, awareness training is also prospecting, and so which we give away to our partners unlimited for as part of your subscription. And we've built some campaigns around that, and I'll talk about that in a few moments. But dark web's an interesting thing because when it first came out, it was it was the shiny penny,
right?
And everybody had to have it. They jumped on board. More power to those guys for really. I mean, they did a bang up job, basically creating something for the market that I truly believe is extraordinarily valuable, which is dark web monitoring. And I know a lot of people and I get this all the time on Facebook and LinkedIn. Oh, no, dark web is just, it's FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And there's nothing to do with it. And just, you don't really need it. And actually, to those people that think that, you're dead wrong. And here's why. Because if you use dark web monitoring as a component of your services, it's nothing but data that is actionable.
Right.
Right. So people think dark web monitoring means it's too late, there's nothing I can do. Well, there's actually things you can do. So our dark web data vendor, and we do partner with a vendor who does that. These are the vendors that provide the dark web data to the Fortune 100 companies. So we've got some amazing data. Everybody has different data sources. We have amazing data. And I would strongly encourage anybody who wants to do a side-by-side test. I'd love to do it with you and see if I'm wrong. Anyway, having said that for a moment, why is it so valuable? Because there's two things you should be doing with the dark web today. Right now, if you have it, you should be doing it. The first thing you should be doing is something called account takeover protection. So ATO is a shorthand for it. Most MSPs have never heard of this. But also most MSPs never heard of the dark web until a few years ago.
Right.
So ATO, is an enterprise grade service that you deliver to your clients. And what it means is when their credentials are identified in the dark web, you go and facilitate an account lockdown or an account password change. And you can script that with your RMM. So for instance, in my MSP, we do that today. So my MSP is one of CyberGuard's partners. I'm in full disclosure. We also pay full price. God damn it. So we use the dark web data, and we've got 150 clients in my MSP now. So we use the dark web data, and we've scripted out ATO services that we upsell for a premium charge. And so when we get dark web data in, it feeds into our RMM, and it automatically sends an email out to, you've given you an example how we do it. It automatically sends an email out to the point of contact at our client site and to the user that their password is being reset to the default we've all agreed on with your company, and that will happen at X hour. Mm-hmm. And then our RMM does that. And they pay us healthy per user for that. Mm-hmm. They pay us healthy per user for that. So that's an ATO service that every MSP on this call today, or who will view this in the future, can implement with their dark web monitoring. With we say our. How's that? If you use that? And if you're not, you should. So that's one thing that you should be doing. The other thing that you should be doing is, because all MSPs, most MSPs, do something called vendor relationship management, which means what they do is they interface with the vendors that touch the technology of the client's organizations. So I'm sure ProdigyTeks deals with the multifunction copier companies. I'm sure you deal with the phone companies if you're not selling phone service for that particular client. You're dealing with
you name it.
Dark web data gives you the ability to vendor compliance. Check out those vendors that are touching that network in case they're breached. And so you should be monitoring the domains of the vendors to alert your client when their vendors have been breached. So that they know, hey, the copier company that has direct access to the copier has now been breached. I want to kill that connectivity. I need your permission to do that. Think about the trusted advisor role you've just put yourself in. I don't know of any, except our own MSP and a couple of our partner MSPs, that are doing that. And that is an extraordinarily valuable consultative service that is not IT. Now, we know it is IT, but in the eyes of your clients, you are a trusted advisor. You are effectively legal counsel in that regard, because you're monitoring their vendor community. Now, this can extend beyond just the ones you deal with. Think about it, you can do that for all of their vendors. Now, you do pay that on a per domain basis with us, but again, we don't sell you a bundle, so you can do it one-offs or not. But you can sell that then to your client. Listen, I want to monitor all of your vendors, not just us. You want to know if they're breached, because, for instance, you may not be touching technology, but what if your law firm's been breached and all of your confidential data with your lawyer has been exposed in a breach, or your insurance company has been breached? What if their data has been exposed? So those are terrific consultative value added services that you can be doing today with the dark web. That is both extraordinarily valuable to your clients and extraordinarily profitable to you.
And those are very good points too, because I'd even think about the vendor piece of that as well, especially a lot of those that have specifically looked at industries such as legal and healthcare. They're all those line of business softwares that are in the cloud that are specific to that industry, and monitoring those guys before they even announce that there was a breach. It's going to be pretty helpful. And not only that, just being proactive. I said a story the last episode we had where, we have a network monitoring tool that was able to tell us that the network was out within 15 minutes. And, we gave a call and we found the phones were down. So we ended up taking a ride over there, figured out it was a power outage. It came back on the next day, et cetera. But then later on, with a conversation with the owner didn't realize that we went on our own proactively, that they thought the office manager called us because some of the things weren't coming on. So it's exactly the same way where being proactive instead of reactive with a lot of our services go a long way and really help with the stickiness with our clients, to continue to just have faith in us as we move forward.
Right. No, and think you know your client base better than we ever would, right? So, but think of the value proposition that something like vendor compliance management as a service that you can bolt onto your MSP. So even something entitled like that, and I use that name purposely because that's what I use in my MSP, by the way. So feel free to steal it. I have not copyrighted it. You can steal it if you're a PII Guard partner. You can't do that if you're not. Just kidding. But it doesn't even have the name technology-centric name in it. And so it really sets you apart from other MSPs.
Yeah.
By really starting to talk about something in the way of compliance and consultative and things like that make you much, much more sticky to your clients than any MSP that may come in and try to wedge you out. It's also a great way to wedge another MSP out. Yeah. We also do vendor compliance management, which means we make sure that your vendors are not breached. Oh, wow. Nobody else does that. I mean, it's a great talking point. So
exactly.
anyway,
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Why don't we go into more on kind of like the training module piece of PyGuard there? I know for all of us, we either hate training or we love training. It's kind of a 50-50 because some of us believe no matter how much training you give to a customer, if you don't have a stick to beat them over the head with to understand what's going on, it's not going to really go and work well. But also there are those that understand the importance of it, and those that do buy in, and having that available has been instrumental in a lot of the calls and issues and things of that nature. Why don't you go a little bit more about kind of how does your training component really, offer and assist in a way to those that would be enrolled?
Sure. So you get unlimited training. There's a $99 a month subscription fee, and that's the base partner fee. With that comes unlimited training, and I quite literally mean unlimited. I know that some of our competitors call it unlimited, but they really limit you to 5,000 users or whatever the number is. You can put 105,000 users on the platform, and your $99 doesn't change. And also, we include with that, when they've completed training, then every user is also going to automatically get something we call security shorts, which are, for lack of a better term, micro trainings that they would get every single week, keeping security top of mind. Because think about like high school calculus if you took it. I did, unfortunately. But if you took it in high school and you passed it, awesome. I today couldn't give you I probably could give you one or two, but most people couldn't give you a single formula from calculus back then because they haven't used it since high school. And that's the same thing about training. And so you take a training course. It's a web-based, self-paced course that's broken up into segments that you can pause and rewind and et cetera. And then you do a mini quiz and another course and a mini quiz and another course. And at the end, you take a full quiz and you get a certificate when you pass. The whole thing, if you sat down and went right through it, would last about 45 minutes, give or take an ish. But you can take as long as you want to get through it. Once you've successfully completed it, then you get this certificate and you start getting micro trainings thereafter, what we call security shorts. And they come out every Thursday between 1 and 3 because that's the highest open rate. And we want to make sure people view it. And we track everything from who took the course, when they took it, how long they took, how much they rewinded, how often they had to take the quiz, to did they get the email, did they open the email, did they watch the video. We track all of that from an audit perspective. Now, a lot of MSPs sign up, and they do this with us too. So it's not that it's not anomalous to just our competitors, but they sign up saying we also offer training, and they do nothing with it. I cannot tell you how valuable that training is for an MSP to make your clients sticky and to close new business. So I just did a whole webinar on this. So every other Thursday, and we did one just yesterday, we have this a webinar series called Scaling Your Security Practice, a success through execution webinar series. And so every other Thursday, we basically do a webinar about something on our platform and how to execute using the platform or using security to scale your business. And yesterday's was specifically on training. And a lot of MSPs don't think about this. But training is an extraordinarily valuable tool to make your clients very sticky and to close new business. And one of the reasons we give you unlimited training is because, A, we believe training is important, because it's shown that trained users, 60% of trained users, 80% drop in falling victim to phishing and other attacks from organizations whose team went through training successfully. 80% drop in successful attacks for people who it's an extraordinarily valuable tool just to do nothing. If you did nothing but bring the users into the defensive layer of the organization and integrate them into that fabric, right? Because now if they're trained, they can help defend it just by being aware.
Right. And as obviously we all know, social engineering and people are the biggest key loophole, exposure, hole in security in general.
Exactly.
To go from there.
And so
Go
sorry, I'll finish this train of thought. I don't mean to cut you off.
No worries.
But what most MSPs think is they just have to say, we have training and here you go, take it. You have to, it's an MSP who uses it successfully, who uses it right, needs to spend about an hour with their client with the training in terms of managing the training. It's just like every other service you have, but it's going to make you much stickier. And so it's it's not like, here's your training, have a nice day. You should take the responsibility as an MSP to follow up. Who's gone through it? Send out reminders. Hey, you still haven't taken your training, Betty, and we sent you a link a week ago. You're doing this you're doing this, meaning you having been doing this shows the CEO, hey, this guy or girl is helping me help my people, right? So you're doing it for them. Think of it as the proactive maintenance you're doing on the network. You're doing proactive maintenance on the employees, right? And so you're getting them to do that. Then you're following them along. So you're paying attention. So let's say you check the open rate of emails once a week and you notice that Tom hasn't been opening the emails. And so he gets an email from you that says, hey, Tom, you haven't opened an email. I noticed that. You need to start opening these, or I'm going to have to let Bob know you're not opening because he asked me about that. Right? And so, again, your help doesn't take a lot of time on the MSP, but think about how sticky this client becomes by just doing these little things. Now you also incorporate that into your QBR. I really like to call it a BRR, a business risk review. And I know you know that, Paco. But most MSPs call it a QBR, a quarterly business review. One of those tiles in your business review should be the risk profile. And one of the elements should be user training. And you've got 70% of your users have gone through, or 100% have gone through training successfully, but only 70% are in compliance, meaning that they're opening and watching, they're opening the emails and watching the video. A great component to add to the QBR. But if you don't do those things, you don't know about it. And therefore you can't have it in the QBR. So it takes less than an hour a month of your time to work on the training module with your client, but it makes you very, very sticky. And again, it's part of your $99 fee. So it's not like you have to pay for it every time a user does it. Give it away to all of them, but engage them and make sure that they're using it. If you're just saying, here it is, have a nice day, yeah, it's useless.
Yeah, right.
Then you don't need it.
Yeah, I mean, just with anything, just making sure that you take the time out to be able to do it your own self. And now, as you understand it, pushing that over to your client and partners are going to make it even better to not only get, like you mentioned, the stickiness and betting yourself with them. It's just beneficial all around.
And you can do that with prospecting too, by the way. So that's why I said you use awareness training for prospecting. So again, we give you unlimited training. There's no limit. So go to your Chamber of Commerce and offer free awareness training to everybody. And then follow up with them the same way. Hey, Bob, I know you signed up and we loaded up your users. 40% of your users haven't done that. Do you want me to send them an email? Want me to do that for you, Bob? I mean, how long is it going to take you to do that? It's a prospect, granted, but you've got them all in the system already.
Right.
Because in our system, you go down, you select, resend welcome email. How long does that take? And it's a phone call. Here you are to a prospect saying, hey, I noticed you're not making any money from this person. Think in the back of their head, they're saying, wow, these guys are on their game. My MSP never calls me and tells me about that. It's a great prospecting tool. And we actually have a partner in just outside of Boston, maybe in Waltham. I can't remember where they are. They closed a $4,500 a month deal. It started with awareness training, just like I went through. $4,500 a month. So anyway, I lingered on that. Sorry.
No, it's all good, and I appreciate that, because I think a lot of us understand that when we bring in tools, we're trying to figure out, okay, what are the margins on our current, but not understanding the life cycle value of, especially on a prospecting or on a sales cycle. Because although yes, you'll give free awareness training, it's not going to turn a client tomorrow. this is a longer play to help just get your foot in the door. And for a lot of us are trying to figure out what are items that don't cost me a lot of money that I can get that foot in the door. This is one of those as well, as you mentioned, doing these type of lunch and learns, or, well, I mean, virtual lunch and learns now, but
Right.
I know some of us, like today, we're on phase 4, but kind of opening up that networking and getting in front and understanding that piece is valuable. But I think we could probably talk, probably many more hours on PyGuard alone, along with a lot of the security training. But let's take a quick break. Let's gather your thoughts, just maybe on what else we didn't run through for the last 10 minutes or so. But before we do that, I just want to let everyone know again about TechCon Unplugged. TechCon Unplugged is scheduled for September 25th to the 27th in Grand Rapids, Michigan. The reason why I'm bringing it up is we had mentioned several months ago that we did send out a survey to everyone who was subscribed as a newsletter subscribee or an attendee to last year's conference. We are specifically awaiting the responses and kind of what you all have input and given us feedback about this year's event. We understand that there's a lot of people either not comfortable with kind of what's going on with the current situation and climate that we're in right now. And then on the other side, there are those that are just itching to get out and really get into something and going from there. We are working on a lot of the safety and distancing practices. But again, as we asked you last year, and as we got a resounding yes, that we are throwing this conference for you, we want to make sure we continue to do that, and we're doing it by you, for you. So if you can please look at that email, fill out that survey. We did mention that next weekend will be when we make our announcement, whether we're going to continue with the conference or if we're going to regroup and reschedule it for 2021. Those inputs will weigh in on what our decision will be. As of right now, we are looking to see what we're going to do to implement a lot of safety practices. But again, if we get an overwhelming input that says that you're just not comfortable, we just don't feel that this is going to be the year, we obviously want to respect that as well. So again, look out for that email we sent to you. If you did not receive that email, email us at info@techconunplugged.com. We have a lot of great partners that have signed up for us so far. And again, we are working with more that once they get the kind of the go ahead to be able to make those flights and book for future shows, we will be working with those as well. But we got a good lineup for what we have. We're going to be adding some more. But again, it's up to you. We want to make sure we get that input. And by next weekend, we will have a solid answer for everyone wondering if we will continue to have the show. And if we will, what will it look like? So I appreciate those that have replied. We really want everyone else to give your feedback before we make that decision, because we don't want to make that very lightheartedly. So again, techconunplugged.com. Again, it's scheduled for September 25th to the 27th in Grand Rapids, Michigan. All right.
Nice place, Michigan. I haven't been there in a while, so.
Yeah, so it was a great time. A good friend in the network, John Dubinsky, is in Grand Rapids. I go up there quite a few times. It's a beautiful city. It's one of those where it's not as busy for it's like city life, but it's also enough where you're going to get what you can from city life as well. So beautiful city. I love going up there. I'm actually going to be going up there July 11th to actually meet up a couple of
Nice.
IT business owners as well, as we kind of do our mastermind thing. But anyway, awesome. Kind of as we kind of round this out, you know, do you have any additional things to share about PyGuard 360? I know we didn't get into the CyberGlass piece, and maybe we'll do another show hopefully here in the future to talk about that platform. But anything else you want to kind of highlight for those that are interested in PyGuard other than what we've talked about so far?
So there are many other pieces of the platform. You know, our policy management module is unbelievable. We've closed new partners because their clients wanted to leave the MSP they were with and go to another one. And this happened more than once, but the requirement was the new MSP had to have PyGuard because the HR department loves the way that they can distribute policies to employees and get the online attestations and the audit to prove that they've attested. So they've uploaded all of their employee manuals and all of their policies. Plus, we give you 70 plus policies and procedure templates. We've added a whole new feature set you're going to love. We do edit tokens, so it's automatically going to customize policies when you distribute them. It's going to do some really cool stuff. Our simulated phishing module is awesome. We've got a lot of marketing collateral that's getting revamped in the next go around in Q3, but I'll leave that out also. But the phishing module is awesome. Yeah, I mean, we have a $99. I'm sorry, we have a $1 for 60-day kick the tire, so you can get to know us. With that, you get the unlimited training. You get the dark web prospecting. I think you only get 5 or 10 of them. You don't get the same amount you get when you're a full partner, and you don't get CAT when you're doing the CAT is our cyber assessment tool. That's our own tool for prospecting, and it's a multi-gated process. We actually have a whole bunch of campaigns. We're working on actually building Infusionsoft campaigns that we can distribute to our partners for those who have Infusionsoft. And then after the 60-day trial, it goes to a $99 a month with the unlimited training and the unlimited security shorts. And then when you sign up a client, depending on how many users they have, you have a client fee for that particular client for the things like, if it's just dark web, it's only $9 a domain. I probably shouldn't say pricing in case you have clients who might listen to this. I'll leave numbers out of this. How's that?
No worries.
Sorry about that. I mean, this is on YouTube and anybody can see it. So anyway,
and prices do change. So
exactly. So anyway, we're month to month because we're hyper MSP friendly, and for $1, check us out. I suspect you're going to fall in love. I know I did.
No, and I appreciate that. And yeah, exactly like you said, I mean, we did the kicking of the tires, being a great partner. We don't see ourselves going anywhere. It's been a great platform that we've used so far. The reporting looks great, a lot of the modules, and I'm really excited to see kind of what comes up now for the phase 2 and kind of what new things are coming up later in the year. But Al, again, I really appreciate you coming out. For those that want to reach out and maybe speak to you directly or find out more about PyGuard, what's the best place for them to go?
So the website has everything. So go to PIIGuard, GUARD 360. So PyGuard360.com, and that's the website. Right on the homepage is a $1 kick the tire. You can click there. My personal email address is AALPER, so my first initial last name, at CyberGuard360, CyberGuard360.com. And then our phone number here is 914-202-0227, 914-202-0227. Feel free to give me a ring. Just tell anybody who answers the phone that you want to speak to Al. They all know me. There's only one Al. So at least one Al for now here. So
Gotcha. Yeah, no, we really appreciate you coming out here again on a Friday, and we appreciate you rescheduling with us and as we sorted it all out. So we'll have all that information in the show notes. As always, you can always join us every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time. Watch live and hang out in our chat room over on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. Subscribe to your YouTube channel or your favorite podcasting app to never miss an episode. Thank you for listening. We will see you next time on MSP Unplugged.
Thanks, Paco.